Story 1. I worked at McDonald's in high school for 3 years in the late 1990s, and it was a very clean store. We cleaned the soda machines every night, cleaned the grills every night, maintained the oil regularly, and cleaned the ice cream machine every night. Our machines rarely broke, and if they did, downtime was minimal depending on the time of day or if it was the weekend. We never tampered with people's food. Although we were under the influence while working the grill, we never interfered with the food. We worked at one of the biggest and busiest stores in my city. It is always disheartening to hear about unsanitary conditions in restaurant kitchens. Story 2. As a teenager, I worked at 1. A Sizzler steakhouse. 2. An Italian restaurant. 3. Little Caesars. 4. Subway. As an adult, I refused to eat at 1. Sizzler if they still exist. 2. Subway. I would happily still eat at the Italian restaurant, and I still get food from Little Caesars. Story 3. I never worked in fast food, but please do not ever get the freshly squeezed orange juice at Sam's Club. I used to work there and the things I saw were horrifying. The juicer thinks they are immune because they have gloves on. They wear the same gloves from the start of the shift until the end, going to the bathroom with them, picking up stuff from the floor, scratching themselves, and so on. Story 4. I have worked at Subway in New Zealand, and overall, the place was always spotless and well above hygiene standards. The only thing I would not recommend is the plain chicken strips used in the teriyaki and bacon ranch sandwiches. When you open the bag, it has an unpleasant smell like a fart that has been vacuum sealed for freshness. Story 5. What I have learned from this post is nothing. The place where you worked as a teenager is irrelevant. Many of these places are not chains. They are franchises, and each one will be different depending on who owns it and who works there. Some are probably unpleasant, and some are probably the cleanest restaurant in the state. Story 6. I would avoid the chicken items at Panera. Our chicken was shredded by the dishwasher operator who did not wear gloves and would stop shredding, handle the dishes, then go right back to shredding without washing their hands. I also always distrusted the soups. They sat in lukewarm water for hours, sometimes all day if they were not popular flavors, until someone ordered one. That did not seem sanitary. Story 7. Any slushy, Slurpee, or icy. Those machines are rarely cleaned properly, and the blades inside are covered in mold. Story 8. Years ago, I managed a Starbucks. The store I took over had severe black mold in the ice machine and the ice bins. I visited different stores to demonstrate how to properly clean the ice machines because many employees could not follow the manual. Story 9. Do not order slushes from Sonic. The machine is difficult to clean, so it is not cleaned as often as it should be. Everything else is pretty clean, though. Story 10. Cece's Pizza, just all of it. I worked there from 2006 to 2009, and there is a reason it was $3.99 for all you can eat. Checking their site now, they still have a deal for $5.99 all you can eat on Monday and Tuesday. How they have kept that price point for almost 20 years should be all you need to know. Story 11. My job took me inside restaurant kitchens. Here is the rule of thumb I tell people. Drive around the back of the restaurant. If they are not ashamed to let you see filth back there, imagine what it looks like where you cannot easily see it. Story 12. My son worked at Pizza Uno dishwashing in high school. He sent me pictures and described the process for the chicken wings. I do not eat there at all, but if forced, I definitely would not get the chicken wings. Story 13. I guess this will get lost in the replies, but many people are talking about cleaning in various places. In high school, I got a job at a Pizza Hut with the old-style red roof and building. I was the dishwasher and got yelled at a lot. It was drilled into me that I had to wash, then soak, and finally leave the dishes in the blue solution in the third sink for 10 minutes. They never had enough plates, so they would grab ones I had not even put in the solution yet. The problem was when a party of 4 came in, they wanted to place 4 empty small plates on the table when they sat down, not bring them out when the pizza was ready. Later, I was told I was not keeping the plates in the cleaning solution long enough. I told the manager she was the one taking them out of the rinse sink, but she just told me to do better. Story 14. Steak and Shake is not exactly a restaurant, but please do not order the shakes. Unless things have changed, the shake station is one of the least favorite roles. The base for the shake is a very frozen, rock-solid, heavy cream-like mixture. It is almost impossible to scoop out, and you have maybe 2 to 3 minutes to make the shake. Attention to cleanliness is not prioritized when there are backed-up shake orders and the establishment is short-staffed. Story 15. I used to work at McDonald's, and I am surprised the McRib has not caused any health issues yet. The pork patties look unusual and sit in old barbecue sauce for hours without being cleaned or changed. Story 16. A couple of years ago, Burger King changed the chicken sandwiches to raw chicken. A person I know who worked there said that when they are busy, they pretty much never check the temperature to make sure the chicken is fully cooked. After having raw sandwiches returned, they did not bother to fully sanitize the workstations. Story 17. I work at Outback Steakhouse and Topgolf at different times of the year. At Topgolf, the chefs are attentive, and the food is handled safely. It may not be of the highest quality, but it is acceptable. Most fried items at Outback Steakhouse are questionable, especially the coconut shrimp. I have limited experience to compare these against, but I would personally never visit my Outback Steakhouse as a customer. Story 18. I worked at Red Lobster for a while between undergraduate studies and law school. I would not order anything from there. There is no way I would even step foot in one. That place is very unpleasant. Story 19. I have worked at Chipotle, Steak and Shake, Subway, Tropico, Smoothie Cafe, Qdoba, Jimmy John's. I would rather starve than eat at Subway. That place is unpleasant. In particular, the seafood salad and the meatball sub are exceptionally bad. Overall, the food is not clean, uses cheap ingredients, and the bread is not fresh. Chipotle was very clean when I worked there about 20 years ago, and the food was good then, but not anymore. So I do not eat there now. However, it was fantastic in the past. Jimmy John's was very clean, and I still enjoy it. Steak and Shake, do not order chicken tenders. They take longer to cook than a drive-through timer allows, so they are pre-cooked and left out too long. Story 20. Subway. Our store was very clean and managed by responsible staff, so there were no real issues. However, if a store makes the tuna the way the corporate guidelines recommend, it contains too much mayonnaise. We used half the amount and it was good. I believe other stores just follow the official directions. Story 21. Not that anyone will see this, but I will never miss an opportunity to complain about making the terrible street tacos at Safeway. Some details might be inaccurate because it has been a while since I worked at the Safeway deli, but the experience is real. A customer walks up and asks for street tacos. You are already stressed because you have jajas in the fryer, need to replace a chunk of smoked turkey, empty and reload the dishwasher, get more dishwasher soap, and make some General Tso's chicken. But because some manager thought it would be casual and friendly for customers to interrupt at any time, you have to drop everything and make these terrible tacos. You try not to show your frustration for the disruption and warn the customer that these usually take a while to make. They are undeterred and respond cheerfully. Now, why are the tacos so frustrating? They do not share any ingredients with anything else in the sandwich bar, and people only order them when the last batch of ingredients is about to expire. You start by checking the tortillas, which are expired and must be thrown away. Then the fish is expired and must be replaced from the freezer. The mango salsa and fresh cilantro are also expired and thrown out. You have to walk across the store to get replacements. The customer is confused, but you explain that the street tacos require using small portions of multiple ingredients and the rest is discarded. After gathering everything, you assemble and toast the tacos. Despite all this effort, unfortunately, this situation reflects the suffering corporations impose on their employees. Customers cannot understand the flaws in how the Safeway deli is managed. They do not know that every ingredient in the street tacos will likely be expired or that the employee spends much time discarding food only to produce a product that is disappointing. Safeway will continue operating, and no one in power will genuinely care about employee well-being. So, do not order the street tacos at Safeway. Or do, maybe they are popular where you are. Story 22. I worked at 2 Subway restaurants. One was in the sketchiest mall in town, where there were many issues with drugs and frequent overdoses blocking the doorway. The other was in the quiet suburbs, where nothing interesting ever happened. One was managed by a very professional manager who oversaw 4 subway locations and was respectable. The other was managed by a self-proclaimed methamphetamine user who was intoxicated during my training shift. Everyone told me that this person would steal from the register and to double-check my cash count often. I was also advised never to lend money to them. You might be surprised which was which. Story 23. Applebee's, your mashed potatoes are microwaved. Also, your skillet meals are only sizzling because you put a piece of ice on them as they are being brought to the table so customers can see the effect. Story 24. If you are getting any fountain beverage anywhere, cross your fingers that the staff clean the spigots. They get moldy if not cleaned regularly. Story 25. I grew up on a farm. When you go to Amish country, beware that they are known for their craftsmanship and not their cooking. By the chair, skip the pie. If you don't believe me, look at their feet. Story 26. The Fribble machine at Friendly's was not very friendly, but it was delicious. I remember washing it out and having baby cockroaches come out. Still, it was delicious. Story 27. I worked at A&W when I was younger in high school. 50 years later, I still do. Good food, exceptionally clean. The only things I would not eat were foods I did not care for. Story 28. Worked at the Cheesecake Factory in college. Honestly, I would go back and eat there now. I never saw any mishandling of food or beverages. The soup is made fresh every day, by the way. It is all very good, so do not overlook it. The broccoli cheddar and chicken tortilla soups are excellent. Story 29. I have worked a lot in fast food. The important thing is to never eat at a restaurant that does not have a full parking lot at lunch or dinner time. They are likely using outdated products, selling leftovers, making unusual substitutions, or leaving items out. Managing inventory is very difficult in a slow restaurant. Remember this the next time you visit Long John Silver's at noon and there are only 2 cars. Story 30. Bob Evans a few years ago. If you go to Bob's, just remember the old saying, it's barely food in the first place. Eat somewhere else. Story 31. Applebee's, do not order a steak when they are really busy. A common phrase in the kitchen was mark it and microwave it, meaning put grill marks on both sides, then cook it in the microwave to keep those 12-minute ticket times rolling. The Bourbon Street steak medium rare is safe enough though, since it finishes on a skillet. Story 32. Wow. I will never eat out again except Pasta House. Please do not tell me anything bad about Pasta House. I love the house salad and the chicken marsala. Story 33. A never order? I worked at a Star Cinema 30 years ago. It was a great high school job. I still can't get the butter topping at a movie theater. I swear it's unhealthier than just using real butter. A large popcorn is right around 1,000 calories for the popcorn itself. The butter flavor topping we used was 140 calories per tap of the dispenser button, and the company standard at the time was up to 10 taps per large. That is 1,400 of the emptiest calories possible, dispensed from a machine that was cleaned once a week and probably violated at least one health code daily. We added butter goo as needed, turned it off at the end of the night, leaving the goo to sit and solidify, to be rewarmed whenever it got turned on the next day. Weekdays might not even bother with 2 or 3 of the 4 total stations. Story 34. The T-bone steak and the Tres Leches pancakes at the International House of Pancakes are absolute garbage. The steak tips and the New York cheesecake pancakes, on the other hand, are quite good. Story 35. I worked at a McDonald's that was cleaner than Mary's. I also worked at an Arby's where the manager reminded us daily that using cleaning spray near customers' food was not a problem. However, in both places, we did not contaminate people's food. That is unacceptable. Story 36. It was a common occurrence to find mold in the pans at Pizza Hut because washers stacked them wet. Seeing people prepare deep dish and toss dough right over it without even blinking made me never want their food again. Story 37. Firehouse subs. Do not get the caramelized onions or peppers. They are just microwaved with flavor powder. About 30 minutes each, if I recall correctly. Story 38. Cracker Barrel is meticulous about cleanliness and constantly checks food temperatures. Food is only sent out for consumption if cooked to the proper temperature. Story 39. These answers are frustrating. The original poster asks for people who currently work in restaurant chains. Here come all the people answering who worked in restaurants in the 1990s. Story 40. Wendy's chili was the only suspicious thing. It was never really put away, cleaned, or refilled. The pot was always there. Story 41. My husband and I spent years working in restaurants. His horror stories from Applebee's are unmatched. Actually answering the question, nothing with grilled chicken. The best option is nothing, ever. Story 42. Do not get the meatball subs at any sandwich place. They are kept in the sauce in the chafing tray all day and then reused day after day. Meatballs never seem to be a brisk seller, so it is very possible you are getting some old meatballs. Story 43. I worked at Denny's in downtown Los Angeles. Stay away from that one completely. They would get their food delivered using a moving truck. Story 44. In 1975, I was working at a Pizza Hut, and like many places full of teenagers, there were always some kind of drugs present. One of the stoners came in having taken acid before arriving and was pretty out of it. Nevertheless, he was doing okay until he picked up the push broom and used it to sweep off the counter where the pizzas were made. Those old Pizza Huts had the kitchen in full view of the dining room, and customers saw that, causing the place to empty out quickly. I thought the manager was going to lose his mind. The guy was obviously fired. Story 45. If you could see the state of the average commercial kitchen, you would stop eating out. At one place, I was told to use a floor squeegee on the stainless steel prep tables. At another, I saw the kitchen manager use a spatula to pick up a face-down broiler entree plate from the floor and then serve it. The wait staff spitting in people's food is more hygienic compared to the absolute state of perpetual filth that is the kitchen. Story 46. Time temperature abuse and improper hand-washing account for the majority of foodborne illness outbreaks. That being said, cheap steak used at Domino's, for example, is very low quality. It is like half binder and filler. Many sub-chains and pizza places use a similar product. Story 47. Red Lobster microwaves the pasta in plastic bags. I am not sure what they are made of, but I doubt that can be healthy. Story 48. There were a few burger places where I had friends who worked that dumped their fryer oil, fat, and grease into a 50-gallon drum each night. When it was full, it was pumped down into the sewer behind the place. This material is not supposed to be flushed down the sewer because it is very hard to break down and separate from the water. My brother-in-law ran the wastewater treatment plant for a small town of under 10,000 people in Minnesota. His budget was always being sidelined, and he was doing a lot of unpaid overtime because restaurants in his town would not follow ordinances about their grease disposal. The issue came to a head at a public hearing where the town council accused his department of slacking. He responded with data about the grease measured from the main street sewers and supported it with the number of health violations each restaurant had received due to grease fires and sewer blockages. These businesses were largely owned by members of the town council. The local newspaper followed up on all of it, and he was quoted from the meeting. He received threats from unknown sources afterward and left for a job in New Mexico. Story 49. Calamari. I do not work in the industry, but there is a recent episode of This American Life that investigates whether pork anus is being used as a calamari substitute. Their research was inconclusive, but it was not a definite no. Story 50. Honestly, most franchise stores are going to be clean to a degree you never thought possible. Random unscheduled bi-quarterly inspections with franchise rights revoked if you fail too many times means the stores stay clean. Just a little dive off the highway or the mom and pop store downtown you have to be careful around. These are the ones where the fryer oil has not been changed for 3 months, the hood vents have their own ecosystem, and the pepper on your eggs is not pepper. Story 51. Having worked at Starbucks, I find most of the locations to be very clean. I do not particularly like their coffee, but it is clean. Story 52. I worked in a restaurant chain once, and to be honest, anything fried that has been sitting around is not good. Those oil vats get reused much longer than you would expect, so greasy items can be questionable. Story 53. I worked at a popular chain for 2 years before one of our locations an hour away had problems, and I was sent to help. Everything seemed fine upon initial inspection. All food was cooked to order daily, and prep was done from scratch every 1 to 3 days without fail. The kitchen, storage, and coolers were clean. There was great rotation and labeling. However, they did not wash the salad greens properly, and I noticed most of the prep staff refused or failed to wear gloves, wash their hands regularly, and have proper sanitation buckets at their stations. I advised friends to never order salads from that particular location and only order food that is fully cooked if they insisted on going there. I did my best to enforce safe food handling with the prep staff, but they must have stopped doing it the minute I returned to my own restaurant. Eventually, they had an outbreak of foodborne illness from the salads, affecting more than 120 people in one night. The restaurant was closed, everything edible was discarded, sanitation was performed, new supplies were brought in, and I was sent back to help retrain the staff I had already disciplined for a month. After a couple of days, 2 prep cooks became upset and quit. They were likely the ones who failed in their duties and caused the illness. Story 54. Used to work at McDonald's. Almost anything prepared by hand in the restaurant. Store managers were greedy and usually ran minimal staff. We were expected to be fast and accurate. They didn't care about food handling. There was no time to change gloves every batch, so we handled chicken, beef patties, and fish with the same gloves. The grill had to be cleaned regularly, but the only time it got cleaned was during the night shift. The prep table was very dirty. It was wiped with the same rag for the entire shift. Sometimes ingredients would touch the table as orders were prepared. We didn't wash our hands as often as needed. Story 55. From Chili's, if you get the house salad, you should only get it with ranch dressing. All the other dressings are bagged and in bottles on the line, and no one is responsible for switching the bottles for clean ones, so no one ever does. They just refill the bottles with a new bag when they get low. The blue cheese dressing is the worst because the bag fills up a pan that could sit there for a week or longer, and it gets all yellow and crusty at the top. The only time people switch it out is when it starts to separate and is obviously bad. When I used to work the expo line, I would switch them out every night or every refill, but that was years ago. I recently stopped working there after over a decade, and I swear I only saw maybe one other person switch them out regularly. Story 56. Ranch dressing usually comes in a large plastic container loaded with preservatives. It is brought out to a warm kitchen multiple times a week for months. If a restaurant manages to get to the bottom of their ranch container, the top is always covered with a yellow sticky paste that future ranch glides over to reach your sauce cup. Additionally, if it comes from a distribution center in California, it often sits in a 130-degree Fahrenheit box, cooking and cooling throughout the entire desert journey. Story 57. Not sure if it has changed in the 30 years since I worked at McDonald's, but I will never eat a McRib after seeing how it was made. Story 58. Do not order the soup of the day because it was yesterday's soup of the day. This time it has noodles. Story 59. Worked for a couple of fast food chains. The chili is often made with leftover meat from the day before. Story 60. When I worked at Cracker Barrel, we regularly had to clean the juice machines, such as the lemonade machine in the back. The parts were sharp, and people often cut their fingers, including me. Even though we put cleaners in the machines every night to kill germs, the amount of blood from people's cuts in the machines disgusted me. Another unpleasant experience was making a giant bin of salad as a 17-year-old brand new waitress. I was not given gloves and was told to toss the salad by hand. Gross. Story 61. Probably gonna get buried, but for anyone who sees this, do not ever eat the burger from Arby's. When it first came around, they were deep frying it. Now, they microwave pre-cooked patties because people were getting sick. Why do they do this? Because Arby's does not have a grill, flat top, or stove. Story 62. 1. Most Taco Bell locations do not clean the pumps for the nacho cheese and red sauce adequately. The wings at Buffalo Wild Wings are thawed in a large bin. At the location I worked at, the bin did not fit in the dish machine, and if I was not the one washing it, it only got rinsed. Additionally, They did not follow their own raw chicken handling protocol. Story 63. Never order the fried chicken sandwich from Jack in the Box unless you are ordering inside. If you are in the drive-thru, there is a timer that starts immediately when you pull up to the speaker. If the time goes over a certain limit, it triggers alarms, and the restaurant can get in trouble from corporate if their average times are too high. This makes staff unreasonably motivated to get orders out as quickly as possible. Additionally, our manager often refused to follow corporate guidelines about having fried chicken patties pre-made because they were one of the more expensive items at the store, and she was responsible for wasted product. This meant they were all fried fresh, but each one took 3 minutes and 45 seconds to cook. Allowing the chicken patty to fully fry would put us deep into the red zone on the timer, especially if the customer did not know what they wanted when they pulled up to the speaker and took time to browse the menu. Many chicken patties were sent out cooked for only about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Working the drive-thru was one of the most stressful periods of my life. Now, when I buy fast food, I either order ahead through the mobile app or go inside. There are too many dangerous variables when ordering in the drive-thru. Story 64. I worked in a Vaughn's deli for a while. The rotisserie chickens might be a little suspicious. The heat-resistant gloves we used to take them from the racks to the packaging were used and then hung on the oven handle until the next cook. I was never trained to wash those gloves. Maybe it was the lead's duty to wash them, but I never saw the gloves get washed. Story 65. I haven't worked at Pizza Hut for over 10 years, but I would say no to the salad bar. We had a good general manager, but a lazy night crew of teenagers and college students, including myself, and there was definitely meat and vegetable cross-contamination. This did not affect the pizzas because they go through an oven, but the salad bar was never properly decontaminated on a regular basis as it should have been. I did not realize this until I worked at Subway for a short time with another good general manager. Honestly, Subway is pretty safe if you are concerned about food safety. They are very strict about cleaning and preventing cross-contamination. As a company, they have specific procedures for cleaning and cutting each vegetable, including the order in which tasks should be performed. Story 66. Ice cream at McDonald's. No one ever cleans that machine. We just reset it from the back. That is why the machine is always down. Story 67. I worked at McDonald's in high school. The food is real, but it is highly processed. The only item I do not recommend getting is the Filet-O-Fish. This is not because of poor quality, but because it is rarely ordered and often sits in the warming cabinet past its freshness window. Story 68. I worked at a Subway restaurant, and everything was clean and fresh. The bins had to be changed and cleaned several times a day. Everything at our location was clean. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.